Good morning, Internet. My name, although you might not have heard it very often on my channel before, is Gravis. And I want to welcome you to the Cathode Ray Dude 100,000 subscriber celebratory extravaganza, or as I considered naming it, Mid-Morning with Gravis. We have a great show for you today, and as much as that sounds like a bit, I'm actually not kidding. Let me explain. So some of you were probably here for my big studio housewarming stream last year, the big 12-hour marathon, and you'll recall that I had no plan, no schedule, and no real idea what I was supposed to actually do for 12 hours. It is kind of tough to figure out how to turn a channel that's about video essays into a live show at all, and I'm not a miracle worker, so it was sort of a blessing in disguise that I didn't think of any ideas because I could not have executed on any of them. That stream was a total catastrophe. You should have been there if you weren't. I did not control the horizontal or the vertical. In fact, I spent the whole time adjusting my set live in front of everyone. And for some reason, apparently, we still had a good time. I don't think anyone expected me to sing and dance and have a bunch of programming lined up, but still, it was kind of remarkable what a garbage fire it ended up being. I didn't have a streaming PC with the resources to execute on even my most minimal aspirations. So what I had hoped to turn into a little TV show with multiple camera angles and a bunch of planned activities ended up being a mad scramble to keep even a single angle working. But I was asking for money to buy new gear, so I doubt anyone was surprised that I didn't have what I needed. And I mean, I still kind of don't. It turns out that money doesn't go all that far, especially after taxes, so I'm still not quite where I wanted to be. To tell the truth, I spent most of the money on the stream box that we're using right now, but anyway, I still need a bunch of stuff, like a second camera, for instance, would be really useful. It's remarkable how hard it is to find the money for that sort of thing. You know, like essential tools, right? Like, geez Louise, how do you afford those when there's so much eBay crap to be bought? So anyway, for those of you who have watched me make it this far and want to help me make it further, I will be hounding you for donations during the show. I have a nice little lower thirds banner that Daria, my lovely girlfriend, and the Vision Mixer operator for today will put up periodically to ask you for money. Hon, you want to say hi to everyone?
Hello.
She's a great choice for this because she's played way too much DDR, and if I wanted somebody who was really good at pressing two buttons at the same time, I think I've got it on lock. But you know, I don't think it's egotistical or anything to say that I'm largely here doing this because I'm proud of myself for what I've accomplished. This is the most interesting thing I've done in my entire life. I can't believe I pulled any of it off. I mean, I have my own studio. You know, I've made a job out of nothing by just pointing a camera at myself and saying things I thought of. So I'm pretty proud of that. And if you are too, why don't we just call this my channel's birthday party? And if you want to chip in to get me a nice present, that would be great. I've actually been looking at buying a new laptop for the first time in my life. Every laptop I've ever owned was literal garbage. I pulled it out of the trash. I've been looking at one of those Lenovo Legions. They look pretty nice. But anyway, actually, hang on just a second. Let me just beep, boop. There we go. I'll explain that in a moment. That was the call box. Sorry, just a second, folks. There we go. Somebody called me. I'll explain why. Anyway, so while I will still be begging you for money, just like last time, the rest of this stream should be a whole different animal. I don't intend to spend the entire time apologizing for technical issues, for one thing. I've got better hardware, I've got better cameras, better stream box, I've got a crew now, and I have a plan, an actual program. I decided that if I'm going to celebrate having more eyes on me than I ever have before, I'd like to do what I always wished I could have done, which is make some actual television. So this is going to be an actual TV show, one that's hopefully fun on its own, and not just because everyone loves to watch me squirm. Like I said, it's hard to turn what I do into a live performance, so I decided to just do a talk show. I've got a lineup of guests that'll be joining me throughout the day. I'm lucky to have some great friends who agreed to come in and try to help me fill this time. One of them actually just called on the phone here. They're filing into the green room right now. So I'm very grateful towards all of them. And they're bringing some pretty cool gadgets that they would like to show you, including at least one it's fairly legendary if you're in the right circles. So this is going to be very different from anything I've ever done before. And camera one. One last difference is that I probably won't have much time for chat, I'm afraid. I've been glancing at it a little bit. 350 people in chat, that's pretty cool. But I gotta be honest, someone's gonna be monitoring it. I got a couple people, but I'm not really gonna have a chance to talk to any of you directly, I'm afraid. I'm gonna be talking to guests pretty much the whole time, so I won't really be able to respond to questions. However, my fax machine is hooked up, and you'll see the number periodically on your screen. So if you really want to get in touch, send me a fax, and we'll see what happens. I actually received one. I'm receiving one right now. I just heard the line ring. But I received one actually before this show started, which I want to share with you. I found this morning. I didn't even know I had it. Just thought this was interesting. So when you announced you had a fax line, I hooked up an old family printer with built-in fax stuff, and since then, it's been sitting downstairs, hooked up to the wall, intercepting all landline calls to the number. Today I walked past it and noticed something on the tray, a piece of junk mail. It's the usual kind of we'll buy your car trash, we've actually got it here, but I never would have expected it to randomly come out of my fax machine. You ever seen anything similar before via fax? Yes, I absolutely have. Camera 2, can you get in here? There we go. There it is. We buy your unwanted cars and trucks. The same as it ever was. That's one of my favorite things, like the whole the spiel that somebody went on a while back about how if you're a malware researcher, it's so boring these days because no matter how clever it is, no matter what kind of buried, multi-layer encryption and memory injection, whatnot, when you finally get all the way down to the bottom and figure out what it does, it just installs a Bitcoin miner. We buy your unwanted cars and trucks. That's all spam ever is now. So yeah, I make no promises that I'm going to read any of those faxes. We'll fit it in if and when we can. But I can't make any promises because, let's be honest, I've never done anything like this before. I'm sorry. I did just see one chat message. How can I send a fax in 2022? Look up, I think it's Fax Zero. I am not affiliated with them, but they will let you send a fax online. I don't think it costs very much. But anyway, yeah, I've never done anything like this before, and I hardly know if I can do it at all. I'm not Letterman by far, so I'd love to say that this is going to be a funny show or an exciting show or at least an interesting show, but I honestly have no idea. It's completely new to me. I just decided that I wanted to do something somewhere between late night and like old school tech TV. So we'll find out if I actually can. Just all faxes coming in. We've gotten 3 faxes so far during this intro. This is great, folks. This something in there will be fit to print. So yeah, I'm gonna get my friends in here. We're gonna just bullshit around. We're gonna look at some neat stuff, and we'll find out together if I'm cut out for television. Maybe it'll be fun. Maybe it'll be mortifying. Maybe it'll just be dead air. Maybe someone will fart so loud that we can't seriously discuss anything for the rest of the day. I don't know. But we're going to get my first guest ready right now. So we'll be back in just a couple minutes once they're mic'd up and everything. Stick around. All right. Welcome back, everyone. So these are my first guests. This is Astrid. Nice to have you here. And Sarah. Nice to have you here as well. And I've got them here to talk about telephony, among other things. But first, did you get decent sleep last night?
Thankfully, yes.
Oh, okay. It took a couple tries. I can imagine why. There's certain words we're not saying today. That was probably one of them. And what about you?
Yes.
Outstanding. You know what's shocking is that I did also.
I was wondering.
This hasn't happened in ages.
Yeah.
I went to bed at the Lord's hour of 10:30.
That's so adult of you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, have you looked at what's going on here? Do I look like a child? I mean. Oh.
Wow.
Whoops. Anyway, putting that to one side. Yeah, I had a bunch of other questions written down here, but I seem to have misplaced them all. So we're just going to take it we're just going to wing it. Or YOLO.
Yeah.
I've got you here to talk about phones, nominally, except that you told me you don't actually know that much about phones.
I don't. I don't think Astrid does either.
That's. The instruments, that is.
Right.
I know more than the average person.
That's fair.
But yeah,
that's not hard.
I guess that's right. I guess if it was like, yes, I know more than 5 phones and I know about them. Yeah.
Yeah. One social circle can only really contain about 100 phones before.
Right.
That's it.
Then you start filling up your storage unit.
I filled up my storage unit so badly that I had to buy an entire commercial property to move it into. I kid you not.
Yeah.
All that was in my storage unit. I know everyone can't see that, but I've got about 8 Metro racks over there. It's The optics aren't great.
At the museum, we have 2 storage units now. Both of them are very large. And I think some of our personal property is leaking into the museum storage unit, and some of the museum's property is leaking into our storage unit. It's all very hazy.
Naturally, that is how it goes.
Yes.
But let's go on to talk about the museum.
Yeah.
So this is nominally where you work.
Yeah.
There's probably other things that you do for more money, but
there are day
those
jobs,
don't need to come up.
No.
That's none of us are here to talk about our day jobs today. Oof, why would we? Remind me, what is the actual correct formal name of the place?
Connections Museum, Seattle.
There we go.
Because there's more than one.
Oh,
Yeah.
Is it an organization?
Yes, we are part of a larger cabal, not really a cabal. We're part of an organization called THG, which has a museum in Seattle, that's ours, a museum in Denver, and an archives in Denver.
You got your THG, then you have your CBE, and
so there's acronyms for days, because
of
with
course,
telecom you have to have acronyms.
Oh,
Otherwise,
right.
what are you doing?
Of course, yeah.
It's the Telecommunications History Group.
Yes.
Ah, okay. Excellence in acronyms.
Yes.
But in actual terms, the place itself is over in Georgetown, right? I'm always unclear. It's at like one of the tips of Georgetown. I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
And it is an actual functioning telephone central office.
Yes. So the bottom floor and half the second floor are an actual telephone CO, and the other half of the second floor and the entire third floor are our museum. So we get to be a telephone museum in a telephone central office, which is really great once you see the equipment that we have, because if you know what we have, it becomes very evident that it cannot be anywhere else.
I'd love to pull up a picture here, but all the pictures on Google are coming up at hilariously low resolutions. But we will have one here in just a moment.
That one's pretty good.
Yeah, that one's not half bad. It also doesn't have you in it for once.
It's impossible to photograph that museum because everything is so closely packed.
Right, fair. I was hoping for an outside picture of it. So actually, yeah, up here, this is kind of hard to see. We've never tried this with guests, so they're a little in the way. I don't know. But at any rate, you can look it up.
Connections Museum.
Connections Museum, Seattle.
Or if you forget, just search for Telephone Museum Seattle, and we will be the literal only result that comes up.
But there are no pictures of the outside of it because there isn't really an outside to it. Oh, you know what? Wow, look at that. We didn't think very hard about where the corner bug should go.
That's okay. I'll stick my head in it.
There we go. There's the Telecommunications Museum. Thank you for being on the show. Anyway, but the short of it is a big concrete building outside of which are there no windows?
There are very few.
There are some.
Do you know the actual reasoning behind them not having windows?
So the thing is, they used to, and when I say used to, I mean like back in the day in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s, they had nice buildings with huge windows because there wasn't any decent lighting, and the only way to light the room was by having these huge external windows to let sunlight in. But in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, they grew more concerned about theft, break-ins, vandalism, that kind of thing.
So it really is just security.
It's a security thing.
And the building stopped being staffed 24 hours a day.
Right.
They went to only daytime.
Yeah. And to be clear, sorry, because I don't think either of us said this, what we're talking about here, Telephone Central Office is where all of the actual physical phone lines that make up the telephone network come together to be connected so that you can talk to someone else. And many other functions. But the point is the central office, where all the wires are and where all the switchgear is, which is what you work on.
Right.
I'm sorry.
It's sort of the ancestor of the modern data center.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, it's where the racks came from, right?
100%. Yeah, that's why they're 19 inches wide, is because all the telephone equipment is 19 inches wide.
Right. So anyone who's worked in a data center is in some way connected to the history of telecom, because telecom was the first time that we had networks.
Right. Very deeply connected, like more than most people recognize.
Yeah. There's more difference than you would perhaps expect between the appearance of a modern data center cable mess and the telephone cable mess, because you don't so much use cables in the telephone network, you use wires.
Oh, yeah.
I think is accurate to say,
Yeah.
right? So in a modern data center, you've got these huge snakes of Cat5 cables, and they're all distinct. Each one is a module with a plug on the end. But in telephones, it's a lot more. Everything used to be soldered, didn't it?
Yes. I just laid down a circuit last week. I soldered 800 connections individually by hand, one at a time.
Wow. And so every single subscriber to every single telephone line in every single central office everywhere millions of pairs of wire, all hand soldered somewhere.
Yeah, there's like cable forms in the museum that are literally like thicker than my arm. Like, and it's just on one frame, just on one piece of apparatus, the wire form is like bigger than my wrist.
Jeez Louise. I actually, I don't want to do this too many times throughout the show here, but I do need to check. We are getting sound all around.
Yeah, sound scum. Yes.
Okay, terrific. Sorry, just momentarily, we've only ever load tested this with guests once, and it was a week ago. So I had a momentary panic. Anyway, but you don't work on any of the current switching equipment.
No, I think so we have a little bit of an overlap. Like there's a little bit of a Venn diagram between what Astrid and I do. I generally stop at 1970. So I am like this brain genius from anything from 1920 to 1970, and then after that I just completely fall off the knowledge cliff. Astrid, you're like 1950 to like 1980-ish.
Yeah.
And that's where your knowledge hive really lives in. And then I worked for a modern telecom, but we don't talk about that.
Right. Yeah, that's our day jobs do not exist. Those aren't real.
Yes.
Yeah. So I've got a picture here of one of my favorite switches at the museum. If we want to get that up on screen there. In fact, we might want to, you know what? Can we just jump over to that full screen? Is that possible? Did we make a button for that? There we go.
Yes.
Yes. So that's the telephone. That's the panel switch.
Yes.
Correct?
This is the one I spent 5 years rebuilding.
Okay, and that is this is a robot that literally plugs telephone wires together.
Yes.
To build a call.
So when we talk about switching, we're not packet switching like in a modern network. We are circuit switching. So when and for instance, in 1923, when you're placing a call through this machine, you're dialing and you are building a physical wire circuit between your telephone and the other telephone.
And was this, there was no amplification at the time, right?
No.
So you've got, I believe you just have basically a battery, essentially.
Yeah. Yep.
You have a battery, and then each person's phone has a speaker and a mic.
Yep.
And that was all the gear, all the bits and pieces of brass and motors and spinning wheels and rods and friction material is all there literally to do the equivalent of dragging an extension cord over to your neighbor's house and across town.
That is 100% true.
Right.
It is the most complicated, people plugging in. Yeah, it's a robot operator.
Because there were operators before this and also after this for quite some time. Right. There were people that were literally just plugging together extension cords to put your call together.
Yep.
But it overlapped with a lot of this, didn't it?
It did.
Because the panel switch was introduced when?
In 1923.
But they were still using operators all the way up into, well, we know they were using them very late.
Yeah, the last in America, the last place to have manual operator telephone service was Catalina Island, and they stopped that in the mid 80s.
Oh, man, I always think it's the 70s. Man, I believe I watched that video, right? I think AT&T actually put out that video, didn't they? And it's literally no one's phones had dials on them. They literally you would go to your kitchen phone and it's just smooth. There's no dial.
Right.
You'd pick it up, operator, and you'd ask
number, please,
for whoever you wanted to call. And they finally phased that out, but it worked. You just had to pay wages. So yeah, all the way up through. But that was an exception.
That was unusual.
They got rid of the majority of them by,
I would say the 50s.
The 50s, because that's when they introduced touch tone, didn't they?
DDDs. So that was direct distance dialing.
Sorry, that's
and
what I was thinking
subscriber long distance dialing.
Right. And that worked with Pulse. That worked with the
totally did.
Dial.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I did not mean to say touch tone. I was thinking of direct distance dialing.
It's all good. There's a couple of technology transitions. There was the operator to dial service. And even when you had dial service, like with the panel switch in the 20s, if you wanted to talk long distance, you would have to dial 00 for an operator, and then the operator would say, "What do you want?" in operatorese, and you would say, "I'd like to call Portland, please."
Right.
Okay, what number in Portland? And you say, I can't think of any exchanges in Portland, but you'd give them
Philadelphia 23,
yeah,
whatever
something
it is.
like that. Yeah. And then 20 or 30 seconds later, you'd be connected to Portland.
But the operator at that point was manipulating a switching system. You just didn't have access to it.
Sometimes. That was another transition. And once the operators were able to do operator toll dialing, there's a YouTube video about that. Then they switched they transitioned from operator toll dialing to customer toll dialing, which is direct distance dialing is what that became known as in a marketing phrase.
Mm-hmm.
And to us now, it's just making a phone call, because we don't really consider the distance of the phone call when we make
Right.
it. Like I'll call my friend in New York and I don't care.
It takes 2 seconds.
Yeah.
But this was a big deal in the 50s, right? Because it used to be you had to call an operator, and then they would like physically build that connection, point to point, hop to hop. And then at some point in the mid 50s, it went to this DDD, direct distance dialing thing.
It was monumental, like just a monumental, unparalleled change in the way that the phone system worked from the consumer's perspective. And I would love to just spend 2 hours here going over all of this, and perhaps someday we will. If people dig this show enough, maybe we'll do another one, and we'll go into this more. But for the moment, I do want to let everyone know that a lot of this has been heavily covered by AT&T themselves. They put out a ton of films that can be found online, and is it AT&T Archives? Is that what it's called? And they're on YouTube, I believe.
Yep.
You're on YouTube as well?
Yeah.
Yep.
I think. What's the name of the? Is it?
Connections Museum.
It is
Connections
Connections
Museum,
Museum.
yeah.
Okay. I'm just gonna pull that up here. There we go. That's the one. So yeah, it's youtube.com/Connections Museum. Got a picture of that up there on the screen. And these are these videos all hosted by you, or do you have other people over there that sometimes
Æstrid
perform?
does some sometimes. See, the problem is
both of you. I mean.
yeah. Well, the problem is we're the ones that pick up the camera.
Right.
There's
So,
plenty
like,
of people doing all sorts of things.
There are all sorts of volunteers there that are doing amazing work on various things. But
yeah, that's why I asked, right? Because I know I've been there several times.
Yeah.
The tours are wonderful. If you're ever in Seattle, or if you are in Seattle, make time, because it's a great trip. You don't need to show up specifically when these folks are there. Anyone there can give you a fantastic tour.
And it's not a short tour.
No.
They go anywhere from 1 to 5 hours.
You're covering 120 years of history.
Yeah.
And the beauty of it is because it's all volunteers, it's all people who are passionate about this. Nobody's like droning. Nobody's going, and then in 1955, and reading off plaques. Everyone's internalized this.
I was joking to a friend who came to town the other day for the first time. Thank you for coming to the Museum of My Special Interest.
Right, yeah. Which is, where are we, right? I've always thought about having open houses here, but obviously I have to get it a little further past where it is. But anyway, so the YouTube channel, you got some great stuff on there. You have a Twitter as well, right? Is it the same?
That's Museum of
Which is our old name.
Okay, right. Because you've been through, what, 4 names?
A lot.
Yeah, it's a few. I don't know if we're
many.
supposed to mention any of the older ones.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, visiting the place is fantastic. Watching the AT&T archives is fantastic. And watch YouTube videos is fantastic. You can get lost in this stuff, as so many people. I've known people who weren't into any sort of technology stuff at all, and I pointed them towards this, and then later they're getting back to me and going, yeah, so I was reading about how they did a tone generation in the 30s, and I'm like, I didn't even know this.
Yeah. There is such a breadth and depth of information, and so much of it has like these direct correlations to what we're seeing today in technology and everything. And you could go down like any rabbit hole you choose, you can basically go down that for a year and get lost, which we have all done at this place.
I'm sorry, we're getting a message in chat that says volume up around 510 dB when the green screen is enabled, back down to normal with it off. Did we, honey, we duplicated the mics into the laptop scene.
I'll have to change.
Yeah, we'll fix that. Thanks, everyone. We'll make sure to stay away from that scene for now. Oopsie doopsie. Has anyone faxed yet?
Oh my goodness, it's ringing
It hasn't
constantly.
stopped ringing since we started. Honey, are we receiving these successfully?
Some, yeah.
Yeah, okay, we're getting some. Okay, well, we have to go to break later, and we'll pick up some faxes. So if you've sent your special message, we may read it after the break when we're bringing in the next guest. Anyway, but the other thing is, someone did comment that your hair color is fantastic. And
thank you.
I wanted to ask, is that professional, or do you actually manage to do it at home?
It's professional.
Okay, all right, that's fair enough. Getting it done that consistently at home is virtually impossible.
Yeah, I got it done for the first time since February 2020, just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Man, mood. Well, you got in just under the wire.
Seriously.
Yeah, I went to a work work trip several years ago because I had saved the company from certain demise. So they rewarded me with a vacation sort of, because I had to see all these other people who worked for the company, and I decided, well, none of them have seen me before, so I got my hair dyed Sonic the Hedgehog blue.
Oh, that sounds wonderful.
It was actually, I loved it. The problem is, every single piece of bedding I had was ruined. Yeah. Well, ruined is a strong term. It depends, you know.
I have dark-colored pillows and towels for a reason.
That's what you have to do. I'd rather sleep with a bag on your head with a carefully selected hole. Hey, you know the beauty of having sleep apnea? You got the mask on, so you can just cover your whole head safely and still breathe easy.
There you go.
That's the strangest thing for me is discovering. I've had a CPAP machine for 10 years. I only discovered about a week ago, I'm like, wait a minute. I can pull the covers over my head now.
And it doesn't
get weird.
That's incredible.
Right?
This is an experience I don't know, but I want, because whenever I'm like the sleeper who's just like, give me all of the covers and I want them all on top of me all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could sleep inside of a sealed vessel with only the hose coming in and not get that unpleasant warmth.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, right? Right?
Makes me want one now.
I mean, like, it makes me not want sleep apnea, but like, if I can like pull the covers up, maybe.
Folks, you heard it here. There is one advantage to having sleep apnea. Okay, so we may have time to talk about a few more of these, a little bit more of this trivia, but let's talk about what you brought today, because I have not seen either of these things. So,
and we just told you we'd bring some cool stuff, right? We kind of gave you like the vague, it's an answering machine and another thing, but like we have not.
He's completely unprepared.
Completely unprepared. The only thing I have done is I've made sure that both of these things turn on. So that's good. So what the first one that's really cool is a reel-to-reel answering machine from the 60s. Okay. Before I even talk about this thing and why it's cool, this thing is built like a brick house. Okay, it is extremely heavy.
Wow, that looks heavy.
Yeah, and I even dropped my thingus.
Yeah, you dropped your mic pack there.
It is insanely heavy.
We need to gaff that.
So, these phone company people did not build anything to be like light or portable and handles.
And to be clear, is this Western Electric?
This is actually built by a company called Ford, who's not the same company that builds the cars.
I was worried for a moment. That was the strangest way you could have said that.
For Western Electric, by this other company.
Okay. Wow.
And the reason they came out with it is this was a period in time where a lot of other third-party companies were trying to come out with stuff that could be attached to the telephone network. And the AT&T monopoly was sort of like, no, you can't attach stuff to our network.
And that was circa when?
Like the mid to late 60s.
So that's post-Carter phone, right?
Yes, but that's when Carter phone was happening. Like
okay.
I don't remember exactly what year Carter phone happened.
They were trying to head off a lot of these foreign attachments by coming up with first-party accessories that would do what people wanted to do.
Right. So people wouldn't be a desire to fight it. And
right.
then to be clear, Carter phone was a landmark decision, legal decision in which it was determined that the phone company did not have the right to prevent people from connecting their own hardware to the network as long as it was not harmful. Was that actually in the decision? Or was that a phone company?
I don't actually know the details. I'm sorry.
That's fair. But at any rate, prior to, I don't remember what year Carter phone was.
It was mid-60s sometimes. I don't remember the year either.
So prior to Carter phone, every single thing connected to the phone network absolutely had to be made and sold by the phone company.
Yes.
And this extended to, they didn't even like stickers or things that you could put onto your phone or things you could set your phone on. They want the phone on the table and that's it.
I didn't know that.
They were very picky.
And are we talking about, I mean, they didn't mind if you put your phone on top of a book, I assume, but they're meaning
but
something
the thing
that was
that's
made.
designed to put a phone on, yeah.
Right, so they were upset at the idea of anyone, it was just territorialism.
Yeah. Some of the original answering machines there would be a base that you set the phone on, and that would inductively get the sound out of the phone, and there would be a solenoid-operated lever to lift up the handset about an inch when it rang.
Which is remarkable because 40 years later, Plantronics reinvented this.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh my God.
It was a Plantronics handset lifter from like what, the 20s or the 30s or something.
If anybody's unfamiliar, because some of you may be too young to have worked in an office that used this, if you had a headset for your phone, if you had like an Avaya or Cisco phone circa 98 to 2009 or something like that, the phones had no place to plug in a headset where you could press a button on it and have it tell the phone, okay, pick up the call. So when you heard your phone ringing, you would press a button and there'd be a little robot that would go and pick up the handset. And you would literally, and the headset would just intercept the signal from the handset. This went on for decades. It was obscene. But this was originally, was that a phone company product you described?
No.
No, so that was third party. And because it was electromagnetically coupled so that it wouldn't technically be infringing.
It's not touching the phone network.
It's not.
But that was a little bit too much for Bell. They were sort of uncomfortable with it.
Yeah. Because they wanted to, I mean, even as regards like a plinth to put your phone on, they would sell you that if they decided to. And they were like, well, we don't sell that right now, but we may someday decide to. So we don't want anybody else to provide that, so that customers will remain wanting.
Yep. So this went on for a long time, and the Carter phone was the reason it's so famous, right? Is because that was the first decision that the U.S. made that said, no, you're actually allowed to connect a thing to this network.
And I believe that Carter phone was the second one because Husha phone was the previous.
Right.
That was the important one. I think in the 50s, something like that. And that was literally a horn. It was a plastic horn.
Right, it's a plastic horn filled
have
with
one,
sound
don't you?
absorbent foam. I have one or two of them, yeah, and we have one on display.
It did nothing. It was not electrically active in any way.
Yeah, and
they got mad.
the original Husha phone was a horn thing that you put on the front of a candlestick phone. And so you can shout into it.
Right.
And it just had cartridges of sound absorbent foam.
And no one wanted it.
And it was actually kind of useful because, again, because there were no amplifiers, you had to scream into the phone when you were on a long distance call.
Right, yeah, because literally your signal would diminish as it traveled across the country. So if you spoke in a normal voice, so you had to, hello, Jack? Yes, did you receive those reports? That's not movie magic. That is not just a Hollywood thing. When you're watching movies from the 30s, 40s, 50s, and people are shouting into the phone, that's actually a real thing that had to be done.
And if you remember the phrase, sounds like they're right next door, that's a reference to it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because if they're right next door, they're on the same telephone exchange, so the wires are really short, and there's no amplifiers, and there's no noise, so you can hear them very clearly, but if they're across the country, there's a...
I never knew that. Wow. Okay. So I'm sorry. We should keep rolling with this thing. We're actually coming up on. We're making some not good time here. So
this thing is a reel-to-reel answering machine.
Tris, can we get in here? Camera 2.
So it's got two sides, and I can't open this side because it's all screwed down, and if I had a screwdriver, maybe later. But it has, on this side, there's an endless tape loop, and this is for the announcement.
Okay,
right? And this is just sort of an endless loop that goes either all the way around or back and forth, whatever. And this is the actual message side. And so we have a bunch of these, and before we came on, I listened to all of the tapes on all of them. Mm-hmm. And unsurprisingly, the technology is actually a lot cooler than the audio on the tapes for the most part. Because
yes, that's always the case.
You know, like, you have this thing where you're like...
Whoa.
What happened?
We're getting some sort of echo. Why? What changed?
Nothing changed.
There shouldn't be anything. Why? I'm sorry, folks. Just a moment. We'll figure this out.
Boop-a-doop.
Sure.
It doesn't make any sense. Echo resolved. Did you do anything?
No.
Okay,
Travis,
folks.
I moved my lav mic to the other side of my shirt. Because I think it was pointing at you because I had leaned over.
Oh my gosh!
And then I moved it over here, and now.
Oh my God! So we were getting right because there's must be slight delay between the mics.
Yep.
Wow. Okay, so I'm gonna remember for anybody else, folks. Would you believe I've never done this before? Honestly, there are worse problems. Anyway, where did we leave off?
Right. So this is one of those things where the technology is really cool and really fun. It works like an answering machine, and most of the messages you hear are just like, "Hey, is anybody there?" Blah blah blah. You still good?
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. They said that the echo went away before you moved it, so we now have officially no idea what caused that. None whatsoever. It's happening, folks. Okay. I'm sorry. So yeah, of course, because nobody knew how to leave answering machine messages
Right.
yet,
Well,
right?
like, it's like, okay, so you like somewhere inside of me, there's this feeling that like, oh wow, I found a bunch of old answering machines, and like, what if I find some like crazy murder mystery on one of them, right? And it's gonna be amazing. So like 4 out of 5 of these machines were just like, honey, are you home? Do you want some peppers from the store? You know,
Which
it's
is what
just,
answering machines are for.
right. It is like an hour of that.
That's the beauty, right? I think. Sorry, but I think that's the beauty of the whole thing. We don't like phone calls.
No,
None of us like phone calls.
no, they're terrible.
They're awful
They're
things.
awful.
And most of what phone calls are used for is to do boring things.
Right.
Mostly people just call. People have fights, and people call and you know order more paper for the office. And
I talked to you 3 weeks ago. Where's my thing that I ordered?
right, yeah.
Right, but this one is the answering machine that was at the long distance switch somewhere here in Washington, and I don't know where the office is. So this one is the tech support answering machine, and all of the messages. So if you ever worked in tech support, you know how it is when people call up and they're cranky, right?
Yep.
This is essentially the tech support answering machine.
Wait, so customers call
No,
those?
other switching centers.
Philadelphia
call
calls you and says, "Now I've been sending calls to you and getting drops for 3 weeks now.
Yes, this is that.
Every
This is that
time I
machine.
send a call through Seattle, it doesn't get where it's supposed to go."
Right. And there is some other people who are calling me like, yeah, I've been getting stuff from you and blah blah blah, and that is on this machine.
Okay.
So this one's really fun. I ended up posting these on Twitter, but the problem, so we might be able to listen to this if we have time.
Yeah.
The
we'll try.
problem with this is they have left callback numbers, and the callback numbers are active. They're still real, and they still do ring the switching centers. So what I have to do if we listen to this is I have to, when they start saying the phone number, I have to just mute the volume really quick, which I can do with a key on the front.
Okay,
here.
so we're gonna live boulderize this.
Right.
Outstanding.
So if we did this in post, it'd be fine. We could just beep it out, whatever. But I'm
This
just
is
gonna
live
go
television,
like,
baby.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you have a plan, then I'm happy. Hey, I'm sorry. Real quick, before we start, I've seen a lot of reel-to-reel systems, but those cartridges are remarkable.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Just a second. Sorry, I did. I'm sorry. I did receive a couple messages from guests. I just realized my phone's on mute, but they'll be fine. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead and talk about the cartridges.
Yeah, no. So this is an obviously like proprietary cartridge format, right? Probably not like any cartridges you've ever seen before. This is the take-up reel here, this one, and this is the supply reel here. The tape is wrapped around the take-up reel, and the take-up reel is actually not removable without taking out the screw on the top. So the idea is you can change out the supply reel if you need to. The take-up reel just basically stays in there forever. If I turn it on and play it, you'll kind of see how it works.
Yeah, let's see if we can get it going.
All right, so we're gonna try something here.
Oh yeah, that's right. We're gonna have to.
We have to do this extremely janky, unless you want to use yours.
That might make more sense.
Okay.
Maybe I hadn't thought about that, but okay. Because yours is a little easier to take off.
So Astrid's gonna have to hold her mic up to the speaker, and the first message is me testing it. So sorry.
That's all right.
700 on Monday, March 28th, 2022 at 3:27 p.m.
Whatever, boring, right? But
all right.
I got to get to like one of the actual messages.
Yeah, that's fine.
So all of those beeps are messages that are coming.
Missed it.
Missed it.
I'm sorry about the beeps. I know they're probably very loud.
I'm trying to find like an actual good message because there are some on here.
Man, busy to block my traffic.
Oh, here's one. This guy's mad.
This is Fairbanks Alascom calling. I'm calling concerning the terrestrial circuits to Fairbanks, circuit number 6 and 84. I have a blockage from you. I've made a man busy to block my traffic towards you. I fail on tone continuity on CCIS. I'm at area code 9.
Okay.
And for 50 more minutes.
Oh, did we do our lower thirds? We never did our lower.
No, we did.
Well, run them again. People are asking.
I read it like 3 times.
Oh, okay, all right. I'm sorry. There they are again. That was fantastic. That was from Fairbanks, Alaska.
Yeah, so this guy's basically saying, I'm from Fairbanks. We have terrestrial circuits to you. I hope you guys could hear that, by the way.
Yeah, it
It's the
sounds like
speaker.
Mr. Fairbanks is very mad.
Yeah, he's like, I've had to make a man busy on my end to take care of this crap coming from you.
Wow, he's upset that he has a whole guy.
Yeah, and then he actually calls back later because the problem was evidently still not fixed, and he's like, why is it still not fixed? Blah, blah, blah. So the whole tape is just weird stuff like that.
And let's not continue playing this because we're being told that everybody heard all the numbers just fine. So
Yeah.
okay, well,
Don't call them.
Please don't call them. Genuinely, it won't be the kind of problem that it would have been some time ago. But still, it's bad etiquette. All right, be polite. But you have not ripped this yet, but I assume you will.
I have ripped it. I have the files. I just have to beep out the numbers before I share them.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic if you could. If you can send me a link whenever you have that, put it up on archive or whatever, and I'll put it in the description of this video.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna move the VOD over to my second channel at some point, but it'll be there too. Anyway, so yeah, that was much cooler than I even expected. I knew that like the device itself would be neat. I had no idea that you had media for it, or that that's what a find.
Yeah. So
what a remarkable
apparently
find.
this is just regular 1/4 inch tape, right? Is that?
I think so, yeah.
It makes sense that it would
It's
be.
just it's regular old tape, whatever, right straight off a regular reel, but it's in this weird, goofy format.
I wasn't expecting that.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Not quite. Well, there it is.
It'll be fine.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine. It's actually quite remarkable how. Let's go back to the 2-shot, Chris. It's actually quite remarkable how auto-loading tape and ribbon systems were quite commonplace.
This is not auto-loading at all.
I'm sorry, but it does have the. You said the take-up reel was fixed,
The take-up reel is fixed.
so you still have to feed into it. It's
You
not-
still have to feed into it. This little clippy clip here, actually, so you feed the tape in, and then you wrap the tape around this little clippy guy. He actually comes out.
It
and
looks
then
like you're trying to leave an answering machine message.
Yeah.
Clippy.
And then-
That's a joke about.
and then you slide this back in, and then the friction of the tape keeps it in there.
Yeah. So okay, I get what you're saying. All right. So it's just inconvenient.
Yeah, it's just terribly inconvenient, but at least it's a little bit smart. So like when you rewind,
It knows to stop.
it knows to stop at the
Okay.
right time and stuff, which is
Yeah, actually, I would love to. I can't grab it right now, but folks, if you're curious, I have a very interesting typewriter ribbon I'd like to show you. Probably not rare, but maybe rare to these days. So, if you stick around before our next guest comes on, I'm going to grab that and show it to you real quick. It's kind of connected conceptually to the thing I was talking about.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I noticed this actually has a handset. Is this a phone?
no. So this handset is used to leave the outgoing announcement.
So it's there just because they hadn't figured out how to call in and and record the announcement.
No. Yeah. So you cannot record an outgoing announcement on this machine without being present at the machine. This phone is merely just a speaker and a microphone so that you can interact with the machine without having to use the external speaker.
Which frankly does make sense because it's not like those elements were expensive.
Right.
And the
Exactly.
speaker and the mic are both extremely cheap.
Right.
When did they stop using the carbon granule mics? I always think about this. Did they ever?
I don't think so.
I think well up into the 80s.
Yeah.
Oh,
At least.
absolutely.
Maybe later.
It sounds primitive, but these things were amazingly engineered.
Yeah?
Like
Oh,
you could literally drop this handset from the ceiling on the floor and it'll still work absolutely fine.
Absolutely. I see there's a button on there.
Yes. Okay, so it's got this handset's different than normal ones. It's got a little button,
Camera 2, can we get in here?
and
Terrific.
normally in a normal context, this button would be a push to talk,
Right.
right?
Right.
In this answering machine, this button is push to play. So I'm listening to the machine, and I will push the button to play back the messages, or if the machine's set the right way, to record the outgoing messages.
Oh, so you can actually use this to monitor the it's not just for the greeting. You can also
Right.
use it to actually listen to your messages.
Absolutely.
Okay, okay.
So-
So it's so close to being a dictaphone.
It's
It
pretty
has all
much
the
a
parts.
dictaphone.
It has all
Yes.
the parts of a dictaphone, but they've been rotated 45 degrees.
Right. Yep. You just you select the mode on the knob, you put the phone up to your ear, you push the button, and the machine does the machine thing.
Absolutely delightful. Just absolutely delightful. And,
Yeah.
and real quick, I wanted to mention because a lot of people probably don't know what the carbon mic is about, and I think I know how it works. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe so. Modern microphones. I say modern. I think the coil microphones were known at the time. I think it was just an alternative design. But anyway, most microphones are one of two types: either electret or other types of condenser microphone in which they use they use like a pair of capacitive plates, blah 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 blah. But the sort of barbarian microphone that you can expect to find going back many decades is the dynamic mic, where you literally have like a magnet and a coil of wire, and it's basically a little tiny generator.
It's a speaker going backwards.
Yeah, it's a speaker. Every single speaker. If you take a speaker, like a pair of headphones, and you swap the cables on your headset so the headphones are plugged into the mic and vice versa, and you yell into the speaker, you'll get audio. You'll be able to record audio that way because a speaker is a microphone. They are transducers, but only because the more common type of mic that was around for a very long time was a dynamic mic. But the phone system never used those in their own instruments. Not really. The modern types of microphones didn't really show up in telephone handsets until all the the divestiture and the third-party companies and whatnot started making much cheaper instruments.
And the reason for that is because those require transistors, and they worked for a very long time to keep transistors out of station sets because they were only invented in the 1950s, and they were very expensive for a long time.
Right.
So the touch-tone dial, for example, has one transistor pumping two oscillators at the same time.
Wow.
Because they wanted to cost optimize it.
Right. So they're just sort of mixing the two signals into the base
Right.
of the transistor.
And so adding a second transistor to the set just to amplify the transmitter current was unreasonable.
Right. Okay.
And so, yeah.
So the carbon microphone, as I understand it, is you have a packet of carbon granules, like
Coal
little-
dust.
Coal dust. Okay. All right. And they've got sort of air gaps between them naturally. They don't tessellate perfectly. So it's a resistor, and you put a voltage to it, nominally 48, but is that really fair? It's sort of
somewhere around there.
It's a couple dozen volts.
Yeah.
You put some voltage through it, and you get, say, 500 ohms of resistance. But if you push on them and you squish them together,
They make better contact.
they just more surface area contacts. And when you let go, they sort of unbunch, and the resistance goes back up. And so,
And that changes the amount of current that flows through the set.
proportional to the vibrations of your voice. So a carbon microphone can be made. You can just make one.
Right.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So I could actually I don't have a multimeter handy, but if I had an analog multimeter, I could literally show you how I could yell into this, and the needle would bounce, not on the voltage scale, but on the resistance scale. On any modern microphone, well, on an electric microphone, it wouldn't do anything unless you give it a current. But on a dynamic microphone, they're tiny generators. So you would yell into it, and you would see volts come out, not many. This one, however, produces no power when you speak into it. But that's wonderful because the phone system was based around this idea of talk battery, where you have voltage, you have current coming from the phone company. So these worked out really well, and for the voice band in question, they sound great.
They sound fantastic.
There you go. All right, so we should move on. We've just got another about 20 minutes here or so. So let's move on. What else did you bring? Because I don't know anything about this.
This is called the stylator.
Whenever you have to invent a new neologism for the thing that you've created, it's either very good or very bad.
Yeah.
Which one is this?
Oh, I think it's good.
Excellent.
All right,
So
outstanding.
there was an open problem in the 1950s. When you call the long distance operator and say I want to call Portland or anywhere else, she would write down on a little piece of paper the details of your call, the time, your phone number, the phone number you were calling, the time you placed the call, the time the call was answered, and the time the call was cleared.
Call details. If you
Call
will.
detail recording, yes. Because then that would have to be transcribed by people in the billing department to figure out how much you owed the phone company at the end of the month.
Because that is the phone company's primary service.
That is the
Billing.
There is no purpose in running a telephone company if you don't issue bills.
Right.
Like, that's why they do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gotta keep the lights on.
Mm-hmm.
So every single phone call required someone to write down the numbers and then someone to read the numbers and calculate on them. And this, as they made telephone calls cheaper through increasing use of automation, they had to figure out how to make billing cheaper.
Billing, literally an improvement in billing excellence.
Yes.
Yes.
And so this is an attempt to, this is sort of I think it's a lab model. It's an attempt to reduce the cost of reading bills, or reading call details that are filled out by operators. And so they, there was a bunch of different ways this was done. We have an entire thread on Twitter about this, but the stylator is,
Here, I'll grab the paper.
Yeah, let's go ahead and let's start setting up for a shot here. Are we going to get this all out of the box?
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
Cool,
Oh, yeah.
Cool. Okay. I wasn't sure if it lived in the box. Some things do, you know.
This thing's a bit weird, by the way. As Astrid
You don't
mentioned,
say.
this is sort of a lab model of a technology that was never introduced.
I'm already seeing this, and
If you want to,
oh my gosh.
You can talk. I'll figure this out.
So the issue, as Astrid had already pointed out, the issue is that operators had to write terabytes of information per year just for billing, and this was all handwritten.
Yeah, they were literally writing and then transcribing billions of digits a year.
Yeah. So I mean, with each one being a byte, we can literally say that's. I'm sorry. Is that gigabytes
Yes.
of information?
Yeah. Literally gigabytes of text and numbers.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then you have to employ people to read this.
What was that?
Cameras used. Don't worry about it.
Okay. I'm sorry, folks. We just had a bit of a glitch there.
180
All right, we're back.
for this.
Yeah, we'll need just a moment to set up for this close-in shot here. We weren't. Do we know? Do we know what happened there? Live television, folks. All right.
It's live. Yeah. So turn that towards the camera. There you go. That's great.
Oh, and I'm sorry. I did just see somebody asking this. The page for the Connections Museum is you can go to youtube.com/connectionsmuseum, and there should be a link to the Twitter from the About page, I assume.
There almost certainly is. I don't remember because I haven't looked in a while.
But if you search for it, with Twitter on Google, you can probably find it.
Yeah, and if you go on Twitter and search Connections Museum, we'll come up too.
Okay, terrific.
So.
All right, so oh, outstanding. Okay, so let's. Do we have a close shot on this thing now? Are we ready to go? Okay, terrific.
Turn that
I
way.
was just checking.
Okay.
And
so we've got a little neon indicator light there.
Okay, yeah. So there's this neon indicator lamp to tell you that it's on.
Okay.
And there's a Nixie tube like thing, which I don't know if it's an actual Nixie tube. It's made by Burroughs.
But it's top firing rather than the usual side address that a lot of people are familiar with.
Right. So there's a Burroughs Nixie tube here, and then you have this plate, right, with these suspiciously organized.
I don't like those. I feel like this is the Dharma organization.
It's very
Sort of
weird.
uncomfortable. And then we have a stylus, which is wired in. It's just a metal.
That's a multimeter probe.
Yeah, it is actually.
It's literally. I could tell. Yeah.
So that's the thing I love about this, because we use these probes every day at the museum, and since this was a Bell Labs 3-off invention, they just used what they had to make it work.
Of course.
Right. So the idea is that instead of having the operators write things down on paper, they can write them down on these tablets, which would encode them into machine-readable digits.
Is this a steno?
It is basically, yes. So if Astrid writes a number, write a 9 or a 7, whatever, the tube lights up with the digit
Take
that Astrid
3. They need to see this response. I'm not handing this up. Oh my gosh. Really?
Really?
I didn't believe. I thought you were going to have to do the steno thing, right? I thought you were going to have to do some weird. I didn't realize it was literally going to recognize natural.
So this is the alphabet.
Okay, yeah. Let's camera 2. Let's get in over here. Look at this. There we go. So yeah, it's got, yes, you're supposed to write real numbers on it, but at the same time, they're
you have to make sure to cross the particular metal segments.
Yeah, you've got to make sure. So I see how they've sort of curved. They've angled the ones on the left.
Yep.
But I also noticed that it's not orthogonal to the to the. Do you
Right.
think it's tilted on purpose?
It's designed to be natural to write on.
Right, because you're not gonna be perfectly square to the thing. You're gonna come at it from a bit of an angle.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
So, wow.
So I can write a 3, for example.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Let's get back on this. Let's
So this,
take a look. So
I press this key to clear the number.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh. Wow. So is this using? I'm sorry. Is this transistor era or is
No,
this
this
relays?
is full of relays.
Can we see that?
If I get a screwdriver,
a flathead
absolutely.
We have. I'm sorry. We have probably 10 minutes. Do we
Yeah.
think we can get this open?
There's 4 screws.
Do the relays obviously move? Yeah. Let's just go to the break screen for just a second, and folks, we'll be back in just a moment, and we'll open this thing up. Okay, get ready.
Yeah.
Okay, and so we're actually just going to go ahead and take this apart
Just-
here on the screen. Can we zoom out just a little bit there and see if we can rotate this? All right. And now, so there are dangerous voltages inside. But
Yeah, there's about 300 volts inside here, so, I don't know.
We're not going to get shocked because we're.
careful.
I'm a professional.
And I meant to ask, actually, I'm sorry, yeah, you can go ahead and take one there. I meant to ask, the pad, is the pad using a reasonable voltage or is it high voltage on there?
There is, I believe, high voltage on here, but it's not at a high enough current to matter. Because
Okay,
I'm definitely closing the circuit right now, but
Okay, lovely. That what a great, if you had died here on the stream,
Yeah, that
would
would've
have
been
been how you
awkward, right.
died.
That would be very
Yeah.
awkward.
We would have footage of it. Okay, so
So-
let's get in on this relay pack here. Let's get in super tight there. Just slam it. All right.
here's how this works, right? Each time you touch the pad,
I'm sorry. Can we pan to the left just a little bit so we can see the? There we go.
each
There
time
go.
you touch one of the elements on the pad with the stylus, the appropriate relay inside
Oh, man,
closes.
It's hard to see. Can we? Is it possible to rotate that a little bit more so we can maybe like if we tilt it up further, can we see the? It might be
yeah,
hard to see
rotate
this
it
on
the
camera.
other
I
way.
think I can.
Yeah, so
Okay.
anytime
It's hard to see, but basically you've got what is it? I'm sorry. Is that 5 relays?
5 relays.
5 relays, and that's the whole machine.
that's the whole machine, they're wired in such a way that any digit 0 through 9 can be expressed by some combination of those 5 relays.
Can we actually? I'm sorry, Astrid. Can we get your mic down there so we can hear those relays real good? And we'll just draw a couple numbers real quick. Outstanding. All right.
So you notice that I'm cheating because you don't actually have to draw the numbers in the order.
Right. So you could
Like,
steno it. You could learn
you
to go
could-
tap 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 tap.
Right. So if a 3 is, if a 3 is this shape, and if we turn that around real quick, if a 3 is, the normal shape that we'd expect a 3 to be, there's no reason you can't do it backwards.
Okay.
Because it doesn't matter. It's not smart enough for it to matter what order the circuits are closed in, as long as they are all closed.
Or you could even just tap 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 on
You-
the
totally.
centers there. So can we?
Doot, 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 doot.
And there's a 3.
And there's a 3.
Fantastic. All right, let's go back to the 2-shot. Wow, that's I knew you told me what you were bringing.
But only
I didn't.
vaguely.
Right. You described it, and I'm like, that can't be what that means.
Handwriting recognition from 1957.
Yeah.
It really is. It really is. Wow.
Yeah.
That is something else. That is absolutely. Regularly when we are talking, because I've been to the museum quite a few times, we've had quite a few
Right,
conversations. Regularly when we are talking, you tell me about things I never knew existed, and I go, well, that's ahead of its time.
Right.
But even though this thing is so simple that I could build it, those bundles of wires are a program.
Absolutely.
That's logic. You've got
Yep.
logic built with nothing more than 6 or 7 bundles of wires just connected in an interesting way.
Yep.
It's basically an organism.
Yep.
You take simple very basic function, and you put it together, and it becomes something more than it should be.
Yeah. The other reason I like this thing is even like, it's not its intended purpose, but I love it as an educational aid because it shows you, for someone who's like not familiar with relay engineering to this extent, it shows you that by hardwiring relays in a certain way, you can do that. You can make a computer program.
Right.
And like, yes, it's simple. This is a pretty rudimentary program, but we, essentially with 5 relays and a bunch of wires, you recognized, digits.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
I love the idea of programs and formats we don't usually recognize. One of my favorites is actually, toggle push buttons. Click, 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 click.
Yeah.
They contain a program.
With a little
Yeah.
thing in a
So
track.
if anybody, I can't illustrate this fully at the moment, but you can probably look up a picture of how a toggle switch works, a toggle push button works inside. There's a spring-loaded follower, a finger like this, that's got a spring pushing on the back of it, and it's got a little track under it. And when you push on the button, that finger goes forward and drops down over a little ledge. And when you let go, it pulls back and it catches. And when you push forward again, pushes forward and drops into another ledge, and that allows it to pop back up to the beginning. And so, for something that has nothing like what we would consider active components, it's literally nothing more than essentially a paperclip and a spring. It's able to implement business logic.
Yeah.
It turns...
It's a smart device.
A smart device. It turns a very simple input. You do the same thing over and over, it turns it into different behavior.
It counts to 2.
It's a binary counter.
Yeah. And
when you first pulled that out, I thought it had a Decatron on it for just a moment. Just a moment.
know.
Oh, I wish.
I know.
If you ever have anything with a Decatron you can show off, well, you probably do. Or if you don't, then Tron does.
Tron probably does.
Yeah,
We don't
like
have.
a 1960s calculator definitely has this.
Yeah, because I don't think we have any Decatrons in our switching
we
equipment.
don't really do many tubes. It's mostly relays at the phone museum.
Yeah, because tubes were... I don't think the phone company used tubes for anything other than amplification.
They use them all over the place, but they didn't trust them.
They use them
Fair.
Suspiciously.
Which is fair because they did break as a matter of course.
Right.
They
so
wore out.
one of the questions we get a lot, right, is how many vacuum tubes does this switching machine have in it? And I'm like, 3, 5?
Yeah.
Like something on the order of less than 50, right?
It's in the realm of a couple of dozen.
Yeah.
And it's because the primary goal of one of the primary goals of switching design was absurd levels of reliability, right? And you simply could not introduce an element into your switching machine that would need to be replaced once every 3 weeks or once a month. It's just...
If you have 1,000 tubes and they each last 6 months, then you are replacing, well, let's see, 1,000 divided by 6, so a couple hundred a month.
Right.
Yeah, and it's unreasonable.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have to find a couple hundred broken tubes a month because they're randomly distributed. It's not like you just sweep through and replace them on a schedule.
If you have a relay, you can test whether the relay is working by click, click, by putting voltage on it. But how do you test a tube? You have to pull it out, put it in a tester.
Right.
It's all these needles. You've got to go,
That's not good.
is that quite where it's analog.
Right.
And relays are digital.
And
Well, they're binary. They're Boolean.
They're Boolean, and they had developed the art of the relay to such an extent that they could literally operate, no joke, up to 40 million times without a failure or needing readjustment.
Because you still have some that have been doing their job
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
for a century.
Yes.
There are a lot of these relays were designed for a service life in the billions of operations.
Yeah, and we got another person asking if you have a YouTube channel. Yes, youtube.com/Connections Museum. Is that right?
That's right.
Connections Museum. Yes, you can see them there. You can find their Twitter. You can find a lot more information about the phone company. Theoretically, we're going to be out of here soon, but you know what? I just heard the door open.
Someone's here.
Someone tailgated their way in. Outstanding. Okay, well, in that case, I thought we were going to have to push for time, but it looks like instead we are going to have to part ways at this point. Thank you so much. This was so much cooler than I was even ready for.
It's so good.
What else is new? For my first guest of the day, if this sets the tone, then it's going to be a great day.
Hell yeah.
So,
Thanks for having us.
Thank
yeah,
you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Astrid. Thank you, Sarah. We're going to go to break now for just a few minutes. It might be like 10 or 15. We got a little bit of... take camera 3. I'm doing my outro. We're just going to go to break here for a couple minutes while I get our next guest ready. But we may be a little bit longer. It might be 10 or 15 because we do have a couple of opening day jitters apparently we need to work out with the setup. But I see that about 600 people are here, so that's a little better than the 20 I was worried about. Thank you all so much for coming, and we're going to be doing this for the next 7 hours or thereabouts, so stick around, and we'll be back with you shortly.